The Bosnian Muslim president, Alija Izetbegovic, arrived at the talks knowing he'd come under pressure from both the Serbian and Croatian sides to accept the principle of cantonization. The Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic has been putting an optimistic gloss on the talks, hoping they'd legitimize Serbian control of a large section of Bosnia. A great deal of wrangling followed over the borders suggested by the co-chairman of the conference. The greatest reluctance came from the Muslim side, for whom cantonization means the end of their long-term hopes for a unitary state. What the Muslims would be gaining is a timetable for ending hostilities.
Within 72 hours there would be a cessation of hostilities. 5 days later there would be the removal of heavy weapons from Sarajevo. 15 days later, removal of heavy weapons or control of heavy weapons all over the country. And 45 days later, the forces would have withdrawn to the different provinces.
And the Muslims appeared to latch on to the issue of removal of heavy weapons as a key condition.
We insist on the gathering of the heavy artillery and effective control of international community over the heavy artillery. And I heard that it's accepted.
The Owen Vance plan envisages carving up the unitary state of Bosnia into 10 autonomous provinces. Though it's not meant to be an ethnic division, it does reflect the military realities on the ground. Areas under Serbian control would cover some 50% of Bosnia. The Croatians have also been given effective control of several large areas, while the Muslims, 44% of the original population, are left with relatively little land. Sarajevo would become a multi-ethnic province. Immediate arguments centre around the northern territories. The Muslims say they need a larger area around Bihać, while the Serbs object to the Croats being given a northern province which effectively cuts off Serbian access to Belgrade. This corridor has for the past 9 months been the lifeline for the main part of Serbian-occupied Bosnia, and some of the most bitter fighting of the civil war has been over the control of this key strip of land.
The problem throughout the Balkans is that constitutional arrangements are not what decides matters on the ground. The reality is that for these arrangements to work, one needs enormous amount of toleration and trust. Commodities in very short supply in the Balkans. But particularly, one would also need to ultimately answer the whole concept of what Bosnia is about. For at least the Serbs, but probably the Croats as well, a Bosnia still run by the Muslims is not one that will be acceptable to them at any level.
Later this afternoon, the Bosnian leader presented the conference with an ultimatum. The Serbian side had to agree to Bosnia becoming an independent sovereign state, and they had to put heavy weapons under UN control, or the peace talks would fail.
We feel and believe that this is a test for the other side.
U tom slučaju mislimo da će međunarodna zajednica izvući odgovarajuće zaključke.
And in that case, we feel that the international community will draw certain conclusions.
I da će se raspoloženje i javnosti i vlada kretati u pravcu vojne intervencije.
That the feelings of both public opinion and the governments will go toward the military.
Mi naravno na tome ne radimo i radimo.
The Bosnian Serbs had in fact promised they'd remove heavy artillery from Sarajevo and several besieged Muslim towns at the London conference of former Yugoslavia last August. Much of today's timetable for ending hostilities has echoes from that conference. Mr. Izetbegovic knows Serbian undertakings were broken then and wants the Serbs to take the blame for failure this time round.
As far as the Bosnian president is concerned, this is really political posturing in order to reject the present proposals offered on the table, but at the same time not to appear to be the person that has actually scuppered the negotiations. The reality is that the Bosnians have very little incentive in accepting this particular deal. They are negotiating from a position of weakness, but at the same time they mustn't be seen to be scuppering it if their hope of a Western military intervention is still going to be kept up.
Tonight's news that the Geneva talks have been adjourned prolongs the distress of the people of Bosnia, now struggling to survive the winter cold. Their hopes have been raised in the past 3 days that peace could be achieved at the conference table. But according to today's evidence, the distance between the Serb and Muslim positions is still